So my name's Alexis Fish. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Vice President of Pride at Valence Media and the editor of Billboard Pride. Wow, thanks. Today, do we have a panel for you? Digital media, pride, and platforms. I have been to so many conferences and summits, I can't tell you, and I don't want to hear the moderator, I want to hear the people. So I'm just going to jump right in, and I'm going to tell you one thing. No, you know what? Nah, I won't. Okay, so we know the rise of queer media has directly contributed to the presence of queer stories in traditional media, and these people, they collectively reach millions and millions of people every day, and they entertain, but they also show us candid portrayals of queer lives, and they give their viewers a personal connection to LGBTQ stories, providing the kind of visibility, as I discussed in my speech earlier. We know they save lives. I'm so incredibly inspired by what you guys do every single day, by what you people do every single day. Did you hear that? I used gendered language, and I caught myself, and that's okay. They put themselves out into the world as their authentic selves, both for praise and criticism. Their talent, strength, and activism, and your passion leaves me in awe, truly. So here we go. Let's go down the line, 30 seconds.
30 whole seconds, my God.
Starting with
Introduce
Joey.
yourself and tell me the first queer content or content maker you watched online. Go.
Hi, I'm Joey Graceffa. I would say the first was probably Tyler Oakley. Oh, sorry, still your answer. There really wasn't that many people. I started back in 2007, so there wasn't really a queer, group of people making videos. So Tyler was definitely just one of the first that I just was like, I identify with him. Maybe I don't realize it now, but I realized later that I did identify with him.
I'm Gigi Gorgeous, and my first queer icon was Tyler Oakley. I also watched this guy. I don't know if there's any makeup lovers in the room, but his name was Petralude, and he was, okay, no. I was obsessed. He worked at Mac, and he did drag, and I was obsessed with him, and he was just out and proud, and it kind of made me right?
Yes. Okay, I remember.
He was light skin, shaved head, super talented. That made me kind of get creative, and then, ultimately just start doing makeup and share my story.
Clap, 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 clap.
Hi, my name's Hayley Pappas. I think mine might have been pre-digital. Probably some influencers in reality TV a little bit.
Love it.
Actually, mentioning MTV, I think maybe some MTV shows back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Tila Tequila, remember?
Yeah, tequila, exactly.
I remember Tila Tequila.
Yeah.
No, but also the San Francisco cast of The Real World.
I was thinking Real World.
I mean, and their conversation around HIV/AIDS.
Yeah, pretty influential.
Are we gonna age ourselves as talking about Real World?
40.
Oh, I love it.
I'm
I'm Eugene Lee Yang. If I had to, I really wasn't watching a lot of digital. I actually would say Hannah Hart was the first person I watched who was out.
So proud of you.
But yeah, I also love. I watched a lot of friends who I went to school with start creating content who were out. Brian Jordan Alvarez does some really amazing sketch work. Yeah, so he and I went to USC together, and I just, that video of how gays greet each other is still, I think, iconic. So yeah.
I guess, hi, my name is Hannah Hart. I think that for me, probably the first queer influencers, in the digital, I would say, people like Tyler Oakley, Michael Buckley. There wasn't, honestly, any, cisgender, female people I could identify with. But let's date ourselves. During the Tila Tequila show, I remember Danny, that was her love interest. Oh. And I was and at the time I was a closeted person, and I was like, what is this? And why do I love it so much? I mean, I was rooting for them. Yeah. Spoiler alert, didn't work out.
Hi, I'm Akana, and definitely on the internet, you were the first that I saw. And I remember being like, she's really cute.
Oh.
Like, I'm straight right now because I have so much internalized homophobia, but I was like, she's very cute.
Wow, that's great to know.
She's engaged, Anna. She's engaged.
She's engaged. It's fine.
I am. It's great.
Hey, I'm Miles McKenna. Definitely like Daddy Tyler Oakley. It's like one of my first. Definitely Hannah Hart. I'm 23, so like I started making YouTube videos when I was 11. So I was like watching and creating content, but none of my friends were creating content. Like it was definitely like a secret. Like no one was really like a YouTuber back in like 2007 until like like middle school, high school, whatever. But yeah, I'm transgender, so it was really like a lot of blog posts for me, like on Tumblr, like people sharing their trans experience. It wasn't a lot of video content. It was all like pictures and like progression and learning about like hormones, and it was really like written posts.
So you've been doing this for quite a while. How has it changed? I mean, I know we've gone from the blogosphere, from MTV to the blogosphere to YouTube and Snap, and like, how has it changed over the years?
My gosh. Yeah, there's been a lot of evolution. I think right now it's become so mainstream that it's just a whole new audience is here, where I feel like when YouTube started, it was a place for like the outcasts and kind of like the uncool kids to find a place where they could connect with people like them. And now I feel like the popular kids kind of found the secret hideout and are kind of taking over in a way.
Yeah, I feel like it's like so saturated now. Like I feel when I made my coming out video, you know who is another person? Troye Sivan.
Oh yeah.
He made a coming out video and I was gagged. I was like, oh my God, he's just in his room spilling everything that he has in him, all of his truth. And that really inspired me. So I feel like when I made my first coming out video, I was like, not amongst many other people that made them. So I feel like now you can go on and find like, thousands and thousands and thousands of like gay coming out videos or transgender coming out videos, and like all the education is there. So I feel like it being so saturated is so nice for people going through a hard time, because it's like I'm questioning these things. Like I don't really feel like myself, or I feel different from my friends. It's like literally type it into YouTube and you will find someone to answer your questions.
I remember too. Oh, sorry.
No, you can go.
In the beginning, it was so many Asian creators too. I remember like Happy Slip, Community Channel, Ryan Higa, Michelle Phan, like all the biggest creators were Asian at one point. And I remember being like, oh my God, this is the first time I've seen someone on screen who really looks like me and that I identify with in all these different verticals. So it was a very big, safe Asian space.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think the difference between like back then, like vintage YouTube, to like now is a lot of the jokes, like when I was in middle school, were like saying like that gay is like a negative term, right? Like, oh, that's gay is negative. But now like you go to any meet and greet, like kids are saying like, oh, I'm gay, like move, I'm gay. And it's like such a positive thing. And it's such like a mainstream joke to say that like you're queer, that you're gay, like amongst these kids, where it's like, whoa, if I was 13, I could not be like spilling that tea. Like that's not it.
I think it's really, it's so wonderful that we get to live and work in this space, and we get to live and work in cities that are also safe spaces. And I think that like, though YouTube has become more popularized and mainstream, and exactly as you said, Joey, like, oh no, now the formula's out there, so all the cool kids are doing it. Even though that's happened, I think that we still need to encourage other independent queer creators to find their places online and find their safe spaces online, because there's a whole lot of America and a whole lot of internet out there that is absolutely not safe, And my fear is that at this point, because it's become this like popularity hierarchy or this like fame hierarchy, that people won't feel as compelled to go out there and make their shorts and make their films or tell their stories, because they're worried it'll look like they're trying to get famous. Yeah. That's a fear I have now, that being YouTube is such an established means of income, is that it's losing itself as an art form, or an outlet.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because Hayley is an executive at Riot Films, and I think Verizon is an owner of Riot Films, one of our sponsors today. We talked about this. You're mining the online universe for content creators.
Yeah, I think, we primarily make documentaries in both feature length, obviously, which mostly don't live online, right? Those are usually seen in theaters or maybe at home, but often short documentaries. And I think a lot of what we've seen is that, yes, obviously, we want to tell the stories of creators online who are percolating and help amplify those voices. But then also, we go to countless film festivals, and there are these beautiful, as you mentioned, short films that often sort of live and die in these film festivals, unless there is a way to distribute them online, and unless there's a platform, whether it's HuffPost or others, that can help amplify those voices, otherwise they can get buried. So yeah, I can't agree with you enough that I think that they're artful and beautiful and nuanced stories to be told, and we have a privilege to be able to help share them.
Eugene, I'm sorry, Hayley.
I'm good.
Any vintage YouTube comments you want to?
I'm good. I'm nice.
We love you, Miles. Eugene, is there something you think we, the industry, could be doing to help LGBTQ content creators access online in a better way and find visibility, or do you think we've saturated? What's going on in that space?
That's a complex thing to sort of suss out. I think that I was at the Creator Summit for the first time this year, which is where they bring a lot of quote unquote like top tier YouTubers together at some hotel, and it's just a big old clusterfuck. And no, it was wonderful to meet a lot of the creators. That was really awesome. But it was interesting because a lot of us were having similar discussions of where is YouTuber popularity at? Is it allowing for new, fresh voices to actually perforate through, or has YouTube actually become, as we've seen, sort of parallel to traditional industries as opposed to as it was before, where we were seen as sort of under traditional? Now, everyone is actually working on the same space because everything's coming together through things like streaming, and everyone is seeing each other as like a sort of competitive talent. So it is interesting because I think YouTube in itself is also treating its creators as star vehicles. And the trending page, which really doesn't mean anything, is the primary example of that. You see the same people trend every single week. So I think that there's, I almost described it as digital content is like its own industry, and it's going through the growing pains that I think even the film industry went through. I think that vintage YouTube was that great like talkies era, and then like all the young people are coming up and doing weird experimental things. And then recently with even the rise of places like BuzzFeed that I used to work at, like that was the sort of vehicle in which they were trying to figure out how do we sell this, how do we market this, how do we package things. And now I think we're in this weird like golden age with like McCarthyism, and there's like a lot of things that you have that you go to hear from Marilyn Monroe, and it's all very specifically constructed to get people to watch it. But I'm hoping that we're going to swing towards this like weird 70s, like we need like weird indie tours to come out of nowhere just to like bust the balls open. And that's why I try to do things like constantly we're asking how do we innovate and do different types of things online to make it feel like there's ownership there. So one thing on our end, I think, as like people with visibility, is to create stuff that challenges the notion that we are stuck in a place of just being popular. Like Shane Dawson's documentaries are a good example. He didn't do anything like that before. And I think that's a wonderful parallel to show that people are growing outside of that. And I think the industry at large should recognize that and also support this idea that anyone can access those things because they should in the digital platform.
Yeah. I think one of the things, first of all, I love you and I loved everything you just said. One of the things that I don't see anymore that really kind of elevated, I guess, my career was that I remember Huffington Post would post, like I'd only made like maybe 6-7 videos ever. And every single time I posted it, some food writer got it and would be like, hey, here's a new episode of My Drunk Kitchen, just so you know. And that is really what generated traffic. And I don't see as much positive media coverage of independent creators as I do see the TMZ style media coverage of people that are just doing who knows, you know what I mean? And that's something I think that we're missing right now, is that the journalism aspect is only interested in talking to the top tier, as to before when it was like, oh look, these are interesting things people are doing online. Like I still get quoted in articles that are like, top 10 creators doing unique things online. I'm like, since when? Me? I've been doing this 8 years. there's nothing I do is that unique. You know what I mean? Like, there's no discovery through journalism anymore. It's all just reflections from the top.
I would agree, and I do think that we have, as you know, HuffPost is one of our sister brands, and I think that we have a responsibility to be identifying and curating and endorsing in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, straight up. If that HuffPost food writer, whoever you are, wherever you are, hadn't just been like, oh, here's a new episode of that funny new YouTube show. I mean, and at the time it's like 100,000 views, but those 100,000 views made my career, you know?
Yeah. Gigi, Eugene mentioned sort of crossing over in traditional media, using the platform of digital. Is that something that you see happening a lot for people? And is that something any of you, is that something you want to do? Or do you want to use this as a jumping off point? And how have you done it?
I mean, for me, I've been doing YouTube a very long time, similar to Joey and Hannah. I mean, as everyone here.
To be fair, you guys were 2007. I was 2011.
So we're really OG.
Yeah. Dusty.
I feel
Dusty.
I meant to drop my mic down.
vintage.
Vintage.
We're like fine wine. We get better with time.
Yeah.
I feel like I get asked a lot because we have been doing it so long. It's like, oh, well, are you always gonna do YouTube? Or like, say you're in a movie someday, are you just gonna, quit YouTube? And my answer is always like, no, because that's what gave me the confidence. And when I did my documentary through YouTube, a lot of people were asking me the same thing. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, it's like even more reason to connect with more people because it's more saturated and it's just that much more meaningful, I feel, for me and the viewers. But also, whenever I see Lily, who is a fellow Canadian girl, just got a late night talk show, which is like maybe the most mainstream thing ever. And I'm so happy because honestly, I feel that YouTubers a lot of the time have more of a deeper connection with their fans than, even like a Leonardo DiCaprio, because it's literally them turning on the camera, whether they have a team or not, and literally just talking to the camera. And it's more of that genuine connection. Like when people meet their favorite YouTubers, they like literally break down and cry because it's like they really helped them through a really hard time. And it's seeing people transition from, the digital space into the mainstream space. I just love it so much. Like Troye Sivan, for example, he just is like killing it so hard in the music industry. And it's like, he did stop YouTube, but it's because he's killing it so hard in the mainstream and he's still doing his thing,
On the cover of the Billboard Pride issue last year.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Anna.
One thing I do find frustrating, I mean, I'm in the filmmaking vertical, so it is a little different, but the CPMs of YouTube and the business side of YouTube has fallen so drastically, it really doesn't encourage you to make really expensive, high-quality content. Each of my videos costs about $3,000 to produce, just like a regular vlog, so I can pay my crew and feed them well, and I make only $300 on the AdSense revenue side. So I rely very heavily on outside brand deals, integrated either at the end or throughout the video, in order to pay my crew a couple $100 a day. And to your point of being an executive, I love making short films. I love finding short films online, but right now there isn't a sustainable model unless you rely on an outside advertiser. And YouTube itself, the algorithm plays to those channels that thrive on just talking shit or stirring up drama, which there is a place for that. I understand. I love reality TV, but I feel like it really discourages true art from coming out.
It's the independent, and I wonder if people are going to start talking about this, but looking to traditional Hollywood's path and looking to the mainstream blockbuster versus the independent film industry, right? There are people that save up their money to make a movie that won't even get them the $300 back, right? And I think that because the celebrity aspect has come so front and center, it's like people are forgetting that it's also a distribution model for your art, not just your talent, I mean, the talent side of it's obviously huge, but I think people have really kind of latched onto that. Like with the Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo, that is one of my favorite scripted series ever. And it's not like it made this massive splash, but it was really good for Brian's career. But what I'm trying to say is that people have done this before. Entertainment has evolved before. And I think that we need to study more the history of film and television and find the similarities more than the differences.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that it's a fallacy now to continue this sort of us versus them, traditional versus digital, that has kind of, it's sort of perforated most of the conversations for the past, I'd say, like 6 to 10 years. It's because now we've realized, and Will Smith is a YouTuber. The idea is now it's just another platform for one to express the most appropriate way to deliver a message, whether it be with online content or a film or through a brand deal. I think everyone across the industry is seeing that they're accessing the same portals. What the thing I think is that I've learned that one must retain is that digital allows you those classic keywords that we throw out a lot, but then it really comes back to it, which is accessibility and authenticity. Those are things that like people really believe, and that's the whole idea of like you can't just walk up to Leonardo DiCaprio and hug him, but that's what it gives you, is this feeling of truth. And I mean, I decided to create a coming out video this year, which in style and in terms of production was in every way, quote unquote, traditional, utilizing my own filmmaking background. And I was actually very reticent because in my own mind, I had this prejudice of this idea of I can't put this online because I felt one gross about it, or I had to like figure out what thumbnail did the best. It just felt strange to put that on that project. But then I realized like what is the point of this project, which is there's no definition of what a YouTuber really is. And we have to express ourselves in our most true, authentic ways. And that was just my own way of doing that. I think that people could see and smell that. And looking back now, that was the best decision I could have made for that particular message I was trying to send. So I think that's just sort of where I think the conversation needs to go industry-wide is, oh, you're on YouTube, you can't do this. It's more like, oh, you're on YouTube, should you do this particular idea here? And I think that's where I believe most of the deals are going to be starting to happen in the future.
Yeah. Hannah. You were all exceedingly successful influencers, but I'm curious. I won't call it traditional media, but what entertainment experiences that you've had have been the most interesting for you?
Well, kind of tying to what Eugene was just speaking to, in 2016, I had my first television show that I got to produce and star and blah, blah, blah. It was on Food Network, and, we had a great 6-episode run. It was amazing, and then, we didn't do it again. And it was funny because the reaction to that was as soon as I was on Food Network, everyone was like, well, that's it. You did it. You're done. And I was like, huh? No, I'm pretty sure this is one project anyway. I'm still working on my podcast, my book, my this, my that, because that's what it means to live and work in Hollywood, is that you always kind of have to have, there's never a moment where you have achieved a singular goal, because as I'm sure everyone also shares, my goal is to have this be my career for my life. And I think that the people who have stories to tell and voices to share and art and support behind their words, those are the people I think that are gonna last in this industry. I hope that we kind of go that direction as opposed to the hyperbolic, headline clickbait direction. I don't want YouTube to just become Daily Motion is basically what I'm trying to say, I want it to stay like an incubation space for artists. But is it still the right space for that? I don't know. Maybe that's what everyone's kind of feeling, because it's being influenced by advertisers dipping in and out in reaction to the content. How long can that really last? So I guess my experiences in traditional entertainment, to answer your question, have only led me to reflect that you can't put your eggs in one basket, ever. And that basket certainly can't belong to somebody else.
Miles.
Hey.
Talk to me about the homophobia and transphobia. We gotta go there. What's going on?
About all of it.
All of it.
Well, we were having an interesting conversation backstage about the industry with the acting world, because I'll get job opportunities or like audition opportunities for like a queer character, like a trans character, and it's like awesome. And I read the pitch line and it's like awesome, and I'm like, go through the script and it's like not that awesome, and it's like, wait, it's misrepresentation, not as accurate, or sometimes the language that's used is harmful, but it's just the people that are creating it either don't know or are trying to create something to, in my mind, like put something out there positive for the queer youth and their audience. And they're like, oh, people will love this, but it's, if there's not queer people behind the camera as well as in front of the camera, it's not going to be as honest, as impactful as it needs to be. So, it's very interesting because, we all have internalized homophobia and transphobia that we see, from the media or from what we don't see in the media. It's not always someone saying something to you, but it's what you're saying to yourself, or you're holding yourself back in a certain way because you're not seeing yourself represented accurately or at all. So that's why I think, YouTube is so important, because it is raw, it is honest. It's these people coming out here and giving other humans the language to put to how they feel, and the confidence and the silent okay of, okay, you're doing that, you're being you, maybe I can be me as well. So I mean, I grew up watching like all these humans, like religiously through my early teen years, and garnering that language and arming myself with that community. And even though it wasn't people that I knew personally, it was people that I felt like I knew personally, because I didn't have that in my hometown, in my small bubble of like my home, my school, and my place I grew up in. So yeah, it's very, very important that these stories are being told. But when they're told on YouTube, they're, it's one person being the editor, being the writer, and, being that producer and that voice. But once it starts translating into traditional media, I really feel like, at least for me, it's like not just, oh, I'm taking an acting role. It's like I feel a lot of, I feel like I need to really dive into what I'm signing up for, because I feel like I owe it to these kids that I'm meeting, that are watching me, that I'm going to choose projects that are positive and important.
That is very wise and a good thing to do.
Thank you.
That's really good. I think that yes. We were at this documentary called Changing the Game that was about transgender athletes in America. And there was a quote from Alex. It said, not about us without us. Nothing about us without us. And I think that was the first time I'd ever heard that. And that really resonated with me. Because I hope that the generation to come is in the writers' rooms, and that the people who are helping fund, produce, make, that everybody a part of the filmmaking, television making, entertainment making process can feel more secure in their own personal identity, and they can move up in their own entertainment ladders. And I think that by staying online and by being like this gatekeeper-free, in this gatekeeper-free environment, who knows who you're encouraging? You could be encouraging the next Steven Spielberg, right? To be who they truly are. So yeah, nothing about us without us. I agree.
Yeah. I think back to the notion of digital versus traditional, I think there has to be, like, we are all demanding there to be more of a fluidity and a genuine conversation between those two formats because of just this. I think that, like, traditional vintage older formats are looking towards our generation, younger generations, newer formats, and begging to understand them. They want to understand them and emulate them. And I think that what's funny to me is what you want to emulate is just authenticity, and it's just genuine representation, right? And so then that comes down to who and how are we employing in the making of these, quote, traditional formats, and can it start to be more of a fluid dialogue among these different formats?
I mean, we have the cast of Pose later, and I think that is just one of the most beautiful examples of putting the people in the rooms to write the stories of their lives. Yeah. It seems so obvious.
And there's a demand for it. Like, there is a real financial demand in return. Like, there are audiences dying to watch these shows and consume them and advocate for them.
I think there's a lot more coming out. Like,
yes.
it's so wild. It's this transition that's happening that the stories that I'm watching on TV and in movies just feel so much more real, and like they're real stories that I can relate to. So I'm excited. I feel like the change is happening right now.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
No, that's you.
We're done.
Congratulations.
Well, I also feel like as an actor who is also an influencer, it's incredibly interesting when I get hired for jobs where people don't know I have a digital presence, and I speak up about a problematic storyline, or I'm like, hey, this moment is very misogynistic, and I don't think it's helpful to the story. And honestly, I don't feel like it's a responsible message to communicate to my audience. They're always like, what are you talking about? This is the story we're trying to make. And you do have this weird thing, like building on what you said off of, is like, I represent something to the people that I talk to. I represent suicide prevention. I represent mental health advocacy. I cannot let those values down, even though I am an actor, which means I'm a cog in somebody else's story. You still feel this immense responsibility about maintaining your values in whatever it is you take part of. And I've had to bow out of projects because they're either incredibly racist, or they're like, well, just like go out of frame and like we'll imply that you gave this guy a blowjob for no reason. And it's mind-boggling. You're like, I can't in good conscience do this or sign on to this. And so I do think the great part about our celebrity, and as traditional and what we do becomes more blurred, is we are able to take a stand. And when we do have a certain amount of marketing power, we're taken a little bit more seriously than if we were just a hired gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I want to choose to believe in the optimism of art, which is that we are going to follow the unique voices and uplift those stories that we want to hear as a generation that is more diverse and more open. However, one thing that always catches me is that with any action is a strong reaction. We see that so prevalent in the digital space, mostly Twitter, and you see that there is going back to homophobia and transphobia, we have to remember always that the reason we exist is because there is a need for it. And you can create a film and you can just walk out of the press room whenever you want. But when something happens in this country, when someone like Tucker Carlson or whatever fucking spews bullshit out of his mouth, we are choosing to engage openly, not only with our content, but also with our being. And I think that's the kind of beauty that digital provides, and that I don't think any of us want to lose, even if we end up winning an Oscar or having a Food Network show. Like, this is something that's really important to especially our generation, which is we're not going to let that bullshit slide, because kids need to hear that, because other kids are being raised in households that are hearing the exact opposite. And so I think that it's going to be a very eye-opening, intense next 50 years in the industry, particularly with, I think, these rising voices. But I think the whole point is that it's still a fight. It's still an uphill battle. And I think that everything is there for a reason. And we are here representing people who just never had that voice until someone could get on a keyboard. And I think that's unfortunately what like the youngest generation might not see, is that they see us on this panel up here in cute clothes and they think, oh, they're done, they're good. Beyonce's number one, so I mean, racism doesn't exist. Like, these are conversations that happen because they haven't seen it. So we have to be out here not only representing but educating, and that's been a huge realization for me, particularly someone who, when I first entered online, I was like, I don't want them to know anything about me. I don't want to even be on Twitter. I don't want to say anything. I want to be this distant, mysterious void. And I realized that's just not the times we live in now, and we need to enact the power and the tools that we have at our disposal, which is these digital platforms.
What scares me about that is that, as to what you were talking about earlier about AdSense and revenue not being enough to pay for it. Like, right now I'm not rebuilding, but I'm maintaining my channel in a way that I haven't been able to dedicate my time and attention to, because I was working on my third book, available for pre-order now, mydrunkitchenholidays.com. Thank you. But I've got some time, and I'm like, okay, so what do I want to make? What is Harto in 2019? That I'm putting a lot of just income into that. I'm putting my investment into that. I haven't made money off the channel in a minute. And so what scares me is that the only way to sustain yourself online is through brand participation. And so it still puts the power in the hands of the brands. So every time you support an artist, or every time you hear the click, like, subscribe, all that stuff, the mentality you should have is, I'll do it, so maybe they don't have to be so reliant on brands. and so reliant on navigating the advertising world. The more I support them as an individual by doing this one simple gesture, I'm giving them my vote. I'm saying, yes, I believe in this, I like this, I want to see more of this. And it's hard. I mean, I've got a timeline for how long I'm gonna just kind of throw money into this, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, you really are beholden to the deals that you get.
I mean, what have your brand experiences been? We actually spoke about, I think, was it Lay's?
Oh, phenomenally positive. I love brand. No, it was great. No, it was great. No, really. I've, in that same kind of like sense of self-value and sense of having your values. One of the things that in my work with UTA and with my management, we've always said like, okay, is this aligned with Harto? Is this aligned with our goals? Is this aligned with our values? And we've passed on opportunities that weren't. But fortunately, I've had a lot of great brands that I've worked with and a lot of great partnerships that have enabled me to either produce content together where I have a little series that's distinctly for the brand, Subaru, Barilla, or do something where I was just straight up like endorsing these Lay's potato chips, Taste of America guys, in 2018. And it sold out of their stock. They were like, these chips are gone now. And I was like, cool, can you tell every other advertiser you know? That's really what matters is people investing in if you have any leftover budget, go find a creator you want to support, Like they need it real bad and they will work real hard for it, Yeah,
it was very interesting to see brands around World Pride this year. Just see the support, and yeah, it was a fascinating experience as someone who's been to a lot of prides.
But they need to be around all year. That's kind of the point. And
all over America, not just target market.
Yeah, and I imagine, I imagine now that as someone who is usually widely known to be part of a comedy cast with 3 cisgender straight white guys who are universally appealing, we get deals, like they're just like funny dudes. They're like, you see them on Comedy Central, you see them on my channel. Like, they're great, by the way, they're amazing. But those deals we lock down are part of like entertainment. We craft like brand deals. It's very easy. But if it was just me, I always assume if it was just me, a queer person of color who's in YouTube, already I have some advantages being cis. I'm like dressed like a fucking tennis coach right now, right? Like, I'm trying to explore. It was hot today, guys.
Hey, my shirt is see-through, man.
I'm trying to learn how to do makeup. I'm trying. But, it'd be so much more limiting because it's just like, what am I going to do? Wait until every June rolls around so someone's going to pay attention to me? They're going to be like, oh, we need a drag queen to pump up this vodka, or we need someone who's in the trans community to represent, I don't know, like a shoe, because that would be cool. So it's really, unfortunately, also up to the brands to realize that we also just need to have that visibility all year round, because pride is not limited and people's queerness is not limited to like a finite time every year. And what I'm worrying now is that the more enthusiastic they get, the more gets concentrated in that 31 days. And that I think is something that I think is what is the frustration we have had online about this whole idea of changing a rainbow flag back and forth. And I think, I don't know, but we have the power in that, I think. I think we have the power to encourage them to consider that there's value in these voices, regardless if it's Pride or Christmas time. Hey, queer Christmas. Get on it.
Rainbow tree.
Queer Christmas.
Oh, they're plotting something. So I want to talk about how you are so visible on your channels, in your spheres of influence. And I want to talk about the safety. Do these platforms need to do more to better protect queer and marginalized people? I won't force anyone to begin.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I think to accept that it's a real problem and to accept that it is targeted. It might not be targeted intentionally. Someone might have not physically typed in hate gay content, enter, and then the algorithm went off and took it, but it definitely has been shifting and influenced by the amount of content that's put out online. And I think that if the solution had been, oh no, well, we started tagging and flagging this stuff to fight back against hate speech, and it's like, well, the result is you're actually demonetizing sexual education and health channels and people, anybody that has any of these words in it, even if they're positive. And then it's silence.
Yeah.
So I think that the first step is admitting that there's a problem and the solution is unknown.
Yeah, just like making sure the algorithms aren't inherently homophobic or transphobic. Because even outside of the YouTube space, like on Instagram, there's a big thing right now where a lot of transmasculine people, their pictures are being like censored and taken down. I know a lot of guys, post-top surgery that cannot post pictures of themselves because it will be taken down. They will get strikes against their Instagram. Even pictures where they're wearing shirts. Like, it's very strange because, what we're coming to the conclusion of is there's a lot of people who are transphobic and they're reporting pictures because they're like, I don't like this trans person who's just out here being a trans person. So a lot of their pictures are being taken down. Like, I was on Tinder like 2 years ago and I log on one day and it says like error code like A303 and it was like your Tinder's like gone, like you can't use Tinder anymore, you've been like taken off. And I was like, what? Okay. So I googled
so
it.
overwhelmed.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't know it was that hot, guys. Cool. I was like, they just like, you gotta get this guy out of here. But no, I googled it and I found all these forums of trans people being like, this popped up for me, like, what do I do? This popped up for me, what do I do? And the conclusion from the community was like, oh, do you have that you're trans in your bio? And my answer was yes. And it was like, oh, well, people are gonna flag that. And then if you get so many you're reported, you're gonna be taken down. And it's like, no one looks into that. No one sees what's really, okay. Wow. I'll try to find love elsewhere. I did, it was great. I'm in a relationship, it's a happy story. But yeah, no, but it's a lot. So making sure these platforms aren't, unintentionally homophobic and transphobic, and then we can talk about, comments and hate speech, but it's like if the platform as a base level isn't helping the creators, it's like, what are we doing?
Also, white nationalists radicalize online. Like, we know now, they go down the YouTube hole of this hateful content, they radicalize, and they almost always take action of some form. And I know that companies don't want to necessarily be responsible for that, but I think you have to. We have a mass shooting every fucking day. Like, at a certain point, you have to realize, is it worth human lives to allow this kind of content to exist on our platform?
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. It's interesting because the leaders of these companies, whether it be digital or anything, they're what bothers me is this diplomacy that they're employing with the language around it. We know that they're doing their best to try to like fix things. We know that the top people at YouTube are not trying to hurt people. But the fact that people are getting hurt because of the general centering on the majority, because of that, then the algorithm then hurts the queer community. That in itself is a signal that the minorities are still minorities and that we are still being essentially relegated to be the ones who receive the brunt of not only problems from the official side, but problems from the hate side. Those are the people who get hurt in the end, particularly with the Carlos Foxrider recent discussion that opened up this huge dialogue. But in the end, you have to ask who's the person who's getting actually physically endangered. And that's what it really comes down to. And then I've thought about it for a while, and I know that, yeah, you are trying everything you're doing, but we have so many massive companies these days. We see scandals every day, then we find out someone's being funded by someone very conservative that are controlling every aspect of our lives, even if we're, I don't know, riding on a fucking bike in a exercise class, you don't know, oh shit, well, this goes to someone who's fucking funding Trump. Like, this is everywhere. And at the very least, when you are a company, especially digitally, that champions diverse voices, maybe it's about time with your power, and you all come from the fucking Bay Area, to actually take a stand. We might need to fight a little bit of that fire with our own fire. And I know that we want to kumbaya and shit and be like, let's be diplomatic, because, I do believe in equal rights for voices, but we are also at a time where I think that we have to be hyper aware that the endangerment of other communities is not erased. Yeah. And I think that it erases it by saying that everyone should be okay to talk about what they talk about online. And I think that's a logical fallacy that, at the very least, own up to the fact that people are getting hurt.
Yeah.
Like, own up to that shit.
It's what systemic oppression is. And we can, people are like, oh, the algorithm is skewed this way. Yeah, we started flagging stuff because of hate speech. But the algorithm is skewed this way because there's more people doing this than that. And you're saying, so you expect independent queer children, creators, etc., to so oversaturate this space where, by the way, they are unsafe and not welcome. And so it's on them to just upload as much happy, positive, queer shit as they can find, and then the algorithm will skew. And it's like, no, they're not uploading, they don't feel safe because they are not safe. That's how systemic oppression works. The statistics are being controlled. The statistics are skewed because the other people who are now oversaturating the space are not in danger. If I was a queer kid growing up today, I don't know if I would post to YouTube. I really don't. I don't know if I would want that. Every time I get a video on the main page trending, I turn off comments on my phone because I don't like hearing dyke all the time. So, can we talk about it? Take a deep breath.
Oh, a minute left. Tell me what you need to tell us. You've
Escape the night?
Make it.
Switching topics. Oh gosh.
30 seconds. What do we need to know? What do we need to know about what you're doing? What organizations do we need to know about? You have a viewership right now that might not be watching you on your channels. You might be more industry leaning right now. What do you need to say?
I mean, high traditional. I'd love to make a movie. I'm just a storyteller at heart, so I just love to tell stories, and I'm kind of switching into a more like immersive experience for my Escape the Night show. I created an escape room that I'm super excited about. It's going to be all this month of August that people can come and experience what it's like to be in my show, which is really cool. So that's my next project, but I'd love to make my books into a movie. So there's that, yeah.
Yes. They need to be made into a movie.
Aw.
I didn't know it was a real escape room, by the way.
Yes.
That's major.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just want to say thank you for having us. This was fab, and I'm Gigi Gorgeous.
We're going down the line?
You just, whatever, use your voice.
I just want to say I appreciate the tone that this panel took. I think we do these a lot, quite often. And I think it's important to, especially in today, talk about the power that digital has and where we can enact not only our influential power, but our collective power as a community. And I am guilty of being someone who has always said I'm going to be the play into diplomacy and try to bring everyone together by not quite ruffling feathers or being incendiary. And I just think we're at a point where the people who need to hear it hard. And the people who are fighting against it are too far gone to understand basic human logic. So for me, it's just a vow that I hope all the panels I go on about digital are like this, and that every piece of content I make or tweet I say or film I produce is not gonna back down, because this is a fight that's gonna continue. And I don't know why I'm so riled up right now. Maybe it's because these pants are so tight, they're so short. I've never shown this much. I have such hairy legs, I don't know if y'all knew. But yeah, take this, fucking far-right America. Take all this leg.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so mad right now. Okay,
No,
calm down.
I would agree. I think we all share a similar rage and fear right now. Things feel scary. I also appreciate everybody's sort of awareness around the intersection of these different industries and how widespread all of our various responsibilities are. From where I sit on this panel, working for a company as large as Verizon Media, I feel very cognizant of that responsibility. And, I'm appreciative to work at a company that does value initiatives like this, right? And that is committed year round. But I think that that's something that needs, the responsibility and the burden shouldn't just be on creators. Of course, it should be on every individual and every company and politician at every level. And I am so grateful for Gen Z and hopeful about Gen Z and terrified of the older generations and just ready for things to get moving. Sorry if it's morbid.
I would say that ruffling feathers is not something to be afraid of.
I remember a day when no one from this traditional side of the world would give us the time of day, and where we were really looked down upon as just the kids in your bedrooms making shit. And I remember craving the validation and the credibility of all of you guys so much to take me seriously. And some people did. I remember HuffPo picked up one of my videos, and finally, I felt like, okay, I'm accepted now. Like, what you guys say matters so much. Like, I love consuming traditional journalism. I love consuming magazines. I love looking to you to know who should I be looking out for, what voices should I be supporting, what artists are out there that stand for something new and unique and fresh. And so I look forward to seeing the kind of things that you bring to the public's attention.
Hi. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything I could say. It's that, you know, I'm queer and I'm transgender, but I also possess a lot of privilege. I'm white and I'm male passing, and I've been given a lot of great opportunities in both the digital and the traditional space. The thing that I could say, it'd be just, you know, don't just give opportunities to people that look like me. That's it.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do.
And thank you, Alexis. This was great. Thank you for letting us talk.